In this tutorial, we're going to talk about while loops in Java. While loops are very similar to for loops in terms of their functionality, but they're different in terms of syntax. Let me show you. So we're going to continue with the example from the last tutorial. I'm going to rewrite this code using a while loop. So first we declare a loop variable, int I. We initialize it to 0. Next we type while, and here in parentheses we type our loop condition. While I is greater than 0, then we're going to execute the code inside this block. So I'm going to copy this from here, paste it in this block, and finally we need to decrement I like this. So at the end of each iteration, we decrement I just like our for loops. So as you can see, we can achieve the same thing using a for loop or a while loop. However, the implementation using the for loop is a little bit lighter and cleaner. So in situations where you know ahead of time how many times you want to execute one or more statements, it's better to use a for loop. While loops are better in situations where we don't know exactly how many times we want to repeat something. For example, let's say we're going to write a program and ask the user to continuously enter something until they type quit. The moment they type quit, we're going to terminate the program. In that situation, we don't know how many times the user is going to enter something. So let's write that program using a while loop. I'm going to delete everything from here. All right, we're going to start with our while loop. Now, what is our loop condition here? We don't have a counter variable in this example. Instead, we want to check to see if the user entered quit or not. So here we can declare a string called input and initialize it to an empty string. Then we can write a while loop like this. While input does not equal to quit. Now, this code is not going to work because input is a string, which is a reference type, and we cannot use comparison operators between reference types because these operators will compare the address of our string objects, not their value. So if you have two strings, quit and quit, but stored in different memory locations, they have different addresses. So we cannot use the inequality operator to compare their value. Instead, we need to use the equals method of string objects. So we want to check to see if the input equals quit. Now here we need to apply the not operator. So as long as the input does not equal quit, we're going to continuously ask the user to enter something. So here we can print a label like input, and then we can use a scanner object to read something from the terminal. So let's create a scanner object and instantiate it using system.in, and then call scanner.next. This will return a string so we can store it in this input variable. Now with this implementation, in every iteration, we're going to create a new scanner object. So if the user enters 10 numbers, we're going to create 10 scanner objects in memory. This is unnecessary and it's actually a bad practice because it's going to pollute our memory. So it's better to create the scanner object outside of our while loop and then simply use it here. Also, here we're assuming that the user is typing everything in lowercase. So if they type quit in uppercase or any combinations of lowercase and uppercase characters, this logic is not going to work the way we want. So over here, right after reading something from the terminal, we're going to call the toLowercase method of string objects to convert it to lowercase. Now to make this program more interesting, let's echo back whatever the user enters. So we simply print that on the terminal. Now let's run this and see what happens. So I'm going to enter a few numbers like 1, 2, and 3. Whatever we type gets echoed back. But the moment we type quit, our program terminates. So while loops are useful in situations where we don't know ahead of time how many times we want to repeat something.